What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Pitt mailbag here on the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel. He is Chris Carter. I'm Noah Hiles. Chris, another weekend goes by in Pittsburgh and another 5 verbal commitments for Pitt football's class of 2024. They're up to 21 verbal commits now. We're not even in the beginning of summer yet. I don't think summer starts officially until the 21st of this month.
Yeah, we got like another week or so.
Yeah, but I mean, summer starts after Memorial Day if you're a real person. So, but nonetheless, it's been a very successful month for Pitt football on the recruiting trail. 10 verbal commits so far this month, 21 overall, 17 have surfaced. And as of standing right now on Monday, June 12th, when we're recording this, Pitt has a top 10 recruiting class in the country. And we're going to talk about that to open up the show. Leonard wants to know, is it fair to expect... Oh, that's not the question we want to go with. Excuse me. Harry wants to talk about that. We'll get to Leonard's question next. But Harry wants to know, is Pitt's recruiting class legit, or are they just getting a ton of average guys to commit early? I have some thoughts on this, Chris. Like we said, they're number 9 in the country right now on Rivals, number 11 in the country on 247 Sports. Their 21 verbal commits, I think, is more than any other program in the country right now. Carter, are they a legit top 10 class right now, or is this just they're getting more guys than everyone else right now?
They're getting more guys than everyone else right now, and it's just very early in the process because you're going to get 5-star guys that are holding out. You know, last year, people remember what was it, Hakeem? I forget his last name, but the receiver that picked Florida State.
Yeah, he was Jackson, something like that, maybe
something along those lines. Yeah. But he had Pitt in his final 5, and he ended up picking Florida State. And I remember I was sitting in the press box at Acrisure Stadium watching his live Instagram during halftime of the Pitt game, and that was. That's how late some of these guys commit. And when those guys, the 5-star guys commit, that's going to jump so many of those major, the Ohio States, the Georgias, the Alabamas, and then the other schools that get those guys, they're going to get their claim, and it's going to push Pitt back down. But here's the thing. This is still a really good collection of guys that they're getting. Everyone is either a 3-star or higher. And I think what Pitt's done, and we've talked about this a lot, but I think what Pitt's done over the past several years is they have either had solid 3-stars or guys who go from 3 stars to superstars. And that's been their MO. But also can't deny when you look on Rivals right now, you said that they're the one that's ranking them high. But you look at this, Jahsir Whittington, who is, seems highly committed to Pitt. He's even come out. Day Farmer, they got 2 4-star guys in there in defensive tackle in Whittington, and then a receiver in Farmer. And then Farmer, doing the natural process of recruiting, took a visit to West Virginia and posted pictures of that, and Pitt's fans were like, oh, and Jahsir Whittington was right on it and saying nah, you need to get back here. Seeing a kid in high school doing that is kind of cool from that perspective. I think they've got a good collection of guys, and they're still making moves right now. They still have space to go get guys. I know that they are active on the recruiting trail when I talk to coaches. So yeah, I think this is still a very good class. This isn't something to laugh at, but it's also not something to say oh yeah, they're going to be in the college football playoffs this year.
It should be celebrated in the sense that Pitt has a legitimate sales pitch now.
Yes.
These were guys that 5 years ago probably wouldn't have committed to Pitt until October. They would have went through all of their visits. They would have watched some games in the fall, and they would have had to continue to be sold on Pitt. Where now I think that they come to a couple of spring ball practices, they make their official visit, and they're sold based on what Pitt's been able to do as far as success on the field and success as putting guys into the National Football League. Now, with that being said, yeah, I just think it's too early to praise or really be skeptical about a class yet, because if you go on Rivals and you look at the top 250 players in the country that are ranked, I'm not going to sit here and count the exact number, but I'd venture to say over 100, if not 200 of them are still undecided right now. So the biggest fish are still out there. And that's my point is, these standings where they're at now, and Pitt could be at 9, Pitt could be at 25, they're going to be a lot different when all of these 4 and 5 stars start committing. And like Carter pointed out, they don't make those commitments. And a lot of those guys don't commit until signing day. Some of them don't commit until, camp starts right before their senior year of high school football.
Yeah.
But they're going through all of these visits. I mean, you look at the 4 stars that Pitt has had on campus this month, and sure, you could point to Whittington, who's been verbally committed to Pitt for over a year now. But aside from him, I mean, Cameron Lindsay, he told me he's not even announcing a top 5 until July. So he's not committing anytime soon anywhere. And that's per Aliquippa tradition. I can't remember the last time any Aliquippa kid really committed going into his senior season. Like one of those high profile guys, they always kind of wait until, after their football season goes through. And so, but like even excluding Cam Lindsay, you look at Yasir, or the running back from New Jersey. I can't remember his name right now. He's going to wait for a little bit. Oh, I have it right here. Well, I don't.
Yasin Davis?
Yes, or something like that. The top player from the state of New Jersey. He's a number 101 player in the country, running back 4-star. But he's not going to commit anytime soon, I'd have to imagine. Elias Rudolph's not going to commit.
Yasin Willis, excuse me. There it is.
Yeah, that's it. Yasin Willis. Elias Rudolph's not going to commit anytime soon. All of these big 4-stars that they're in the mix for, they're not going to commit to Pitt or anywhere else for a couple more months. And when they do, then we'll have a bigger idea if this is an actual top 20 class in the country or not.
Right.
Because you look at some other programs in the top 20 in the country right now in these national ratings. Minnesota is not going to have a top 25 national recruiting class, Chris. It's just not. You know, Wake Forest isn't either. They're top 20 right now or something like that. And they only have 3 stars and 2 stars. That class isn't going to hold up. Now, what Pitt has going for it, though, Carter, is a bulk of their verbal commits right now, 15 of the 17 that we know of, they're 3 stars on Rivals. However, if they get a couple more 4 stars, that is a legitimate class. If they get a Cam Lindsay, or if they get, Elias Rudolph, or whoever else, any of these other 4 stars, or if some of these kids who are on the fringe, you see some players that have recently committed, like Caleb Holmes, the offensive lineman, he's a 4-star on 247, a 3-star on Rivals. If he gets bumped up to a 4-star, then their class might stick around in these top 20 things. I don't anticipate Pitt being a top 10 recruiting class, because in order to be a top 10 recruiting class, you're looking at, out recruiting programs like Alabama, Georgia, LSU, who have 5 stars. Pitt's probably not going to get a 5-star this year. If they do, it would be their first one they've landed in a very long time. And you're going to need most of the top 10, top 15. You're looking at classes that have 1 or 2, maybe 3 stars, and the rest are 4 or 5 stars. So that's just not where Pitt's at as a program right now. That's never been their recruiting strategy, because they're not able to do it right now. But I do think that top 25 is a legitimate conversation. They're going to slide down, but I don't think they'll slide down as much if they can get some of these big time guys that they're still in the mix for in mid-June that previously they would have been out by now. These guys would have had their official visits announced to Auburn and Michigan and Ohio State, but now it's those programs and Pitt getting one of their official visits. They're in the top 5 for a lot of big time names.
And here's the other thing is that this time, usually around this time this year, Pitt's like Wake Forest and those other schools that you named. They have like these good names that right now are fine, but then they get bumped down. And Pitt's still going to get bumped down a bit, but they're higher up on the totem pole because of the work that they've done. So when all is said and done and everyone's name landed their guys and the 5-star guys have committed and that changes the landscape, Pitt's going to drop down, but instead of, out of the top 20 or, maybe into the top, maybe into the top, 30 or so, and maybe in the low part of that, maybe you stay in the top 20, and that's still a big win for Pitt. So all in all, I think that Pitt's recruiting class is very solid so far and still has room to grow. And if, like you said, if they land a couple more 4-star guys, I think it will be truly a special one.
Yeah, and I think that as we wrap up this topic here, with 21 guys verbally committed already, I think with these last 4 spots, you can be a little bit picky. And when you have these just last 4, because I think 25 is the max per recruiting class. I could be wrong there. But regardless, when you already have 20 guys by mid-June, you could say, okay, I think we've got like the depth guys. Now let's go all in and throw all of our resources at really trying to win over some of these big fish that are still out there. And I think that that's what we might see in the back end of June all throughout July and August, and once the season starts as well. Next question now, Leonard. He wants to talk some actual ball here. Is it fair to expect more use from Pitt's tight end room this fall? On top of them hopefully throwing the ball to Gavin Bartholomew more often, will we see more use out of Carter Johnson and Malcolm Epps? I will start here, and I will say absolutely we will. I have high expectations for Pitt's tight end room this year. I think the Epps addition is an interesting one, simply because I anticipate him having a similar role to how they used Ryan Jacoby last year or Carter Johnson, where they can go 12 personnel and just, run a lot of tight ends. Or is it even 13? Would 13 be 3 tight ends, Carter?
Yes, it would be.
Doing football talk, right?
Yeah,
there we
yes,
go.
You are.
Yeah, there we go. I know a lot about tight ends. I tackled one who's in the NFL. Anyway, but I think that we're going to see Gavin used more as a weapon and less as a blocker, although he's already a very good blocker. I think with Johnson's development, he was their most improved player on the offensive side of the ball in spring ball. And Epps, who's been kind of a career blocking tight end at some pretty marquee programs, Texas and USC, we're going to see those guys used in those 2 tight end sets. And you might see Gavin split out wide a little bit more, especially with that thin wide receiver room. He might be one of their primary options on a bulk of their pass plays. So, yeah, I think that they're going to be more heavily involved. We're not going to see a guard wearing a number in the 80s this year because they don't have a legitimate third tight end. Yeah. Just based on the development of Johnson and the raw potential of Epps, I think that this group of 3 brings a lot to the offense. No?
I think they do. I think that also part of this is Phil Dracovic. Yeah. Because part of it also wasn't necessarily the tight ends last year. It was that Gavin Bartholomew wasn't getting thrown to enough. Mm-hmm. And there were games where he was completely ignored in one-on-one situations. And I think Phil Dracovic, he's not going to be the greatest surveyor of the field of all time. Like, he's not going to be Kenny Pickett. He's not going to be that guy that I think that has the ultimate field vision. But I think what he will be is a gutsy quarterback that stands up in the pocket, throws down the middle of the field, takes the big hit, keeps on moving. And that's something that I don't think Pitt really had with Kedon Slovis last year. There were times where Kedon Slovis was tough early on, but throughout the year, you saw the kind that wane back and forth. And Phil Dracovic, that is what he is. That is his identity. Earlier part of his collegiate career, a lot of people compared him to Ben Roethlisberger with the way that he was just use his size and keep on moving. And I still think he's that kind of a quarterback. So, and with those type of quarterbacks, you often go to your big guy, your tight end. And I think that's going to give Gavin Bartholomew some chances, as well as Carter Johnson and other guys. So, tight ends, they'll get more use this year. I think that'll be an important part of this Pitt offense.
And then to build off of what you're saying, another thing where it'll help with Dracovic is he knows the playbook better.
Yes, he does.
He knows what to look for. And
the whole offense knows the playbook.
Correct. The whole offense. And that's what we've been hearing all spring. And even since spring ball ended, anytime we run into a coach or anything, that's all they talk about is how all the players seem to be more comfortable in this offense. And, having a guy who's new to the team, but not new to the system is a big help. And he understands where these routes are supposed to go. He's not kind of learning it on the fly like everyone else was last year. And he's going to be confident in it. So, yeah, I think that that's also going to help when it comes to getting number 86 to football a little bit more. Cameron wants to know, we're going to shift over to basketball now. Blake Hinson said on the radio his biggest feedback from NBA scouts was that he needed to get in better shape. If you're an NBA scout, what are you looking to see from Blake Hinson this season? Carter, you want to go first?
I think one of the big things with the in shape part is the part where Blake Hinson would disappear in Pitt's game, and that was on defense. And I think a lot of times it wasn't that he didn't want to. It's just that I think that he was conserving his energy and he wouldn't close out as hard and he wouldn't be able to do things as much, because then on the offensive side of the floor, he was setting up 3-pointers or he was hitting 3-pointers or he was going to he was doing a lot of different things. And I think that part of what Blake's game, if to be a complete player, and that's the other thing about, if you are not one of the best overall players of college basketball, and I mean like the bona fide first round picks, not questionable guys, you need to be solid across the board. You need to have like I think one of the biggest things about Justin Champagnie that held him back from being drafted and being a bigger factor going into the NBA was that he didn't have a 3-point shot. He had defense, he had rebounding, he could score inside, he could play off the wing a little bit, but he couldn't hit a 3-pointer. Blake Hinson has that 3-pointer. I think he can score score from different places. But his thing is he needs to get better at defense. And part of that, I think, is being in shape to be able to do that on defense, be aggressive. Because, again, he's 6'7". He has the wingspan. He's the right size that you'd want to throw in the NBA and be like, hey, go guard that guy over there. I mean, like the Heat could use a guy with size and athleticism right now to deal with some of the Nuggets guards.
Yeah.
And you could always use guys like that, but you got to have that full capacity to your game. And if he works on that, I think that he will be playing in the NBA. I mean, I think he already will be playing in the NBA, but this will give him a much better chance to see playing time in the NBA.
Yeah, to build off of that, I think when they talk about being in shape, I mean, it's either if you want him to slim down, yeah, be the great defender. Or if I'm an NBA scout, I would say, or if you're going to be that big, I need you to do more than just shoot threes. I felt like he wasn't attacking the rim enough earlier in the season, or later, in the season. He kind of became a bigger outside shooter. And while that's a very obviously important part of the NBA, I'm just looking at him and saying, man, you're a big dude. Like, maybe not as tall as some of the guys down low, but you're physical, like you're strong, you're built wide, like use that size to your advantage, back guys down. I think part of that reasoning why he didn't do that is because we saw Blake get into foul trouble earlier in the season a lot, or in early games. You would see him get charged with an offensive foul or two, and then he would play hard defense on the other end. Next thing you know, he has 3 fouls in 5 minutes, and we don't see him until the second half. And that kind of changed his game on both ends, where he wasn't as aggressive as a defender and where he wasn't attacking the rim, and he just became more of an outside shooting presence. So if I'm an NBA scout, and I'm clearly not, but if I'm looking to see Blake take his game to the next level, I'm saying, yeah, I want you to slim down a little bit. I want to see you guard Kyle Filipowski. I want to see you guard some of the best players on opposing teams, because that's what NBA guys do. I mean, defense, if you're going to be a second round pick, which is probably what Blake Hinson's going to be in the mix for next year, and if you're going to play his position, if you're going to not be if you're a center, yeah, defense is always going to be important. You're going to need to be a rim protector, but you can do other things as well. But you have to be, if you're going to be a second round pick and you can't play defense, you're not going to get picked in the NBA. You need that's a must. And if he needs to prove that, yeah, like, we're not going to give that assignment to, whoever. Like, there were some points of time where they were bringing in Nate Santos or the Diaz-Graham twins to guard Filipowski, or, these other elite scorers who could play on the wing, where it should be Blake. That's your guy. Go get him. Because if you want to play at the next level, everyone's a Filipowski, if not better. So that's what I want to see. I want to see him take the hardest defensive assignments, and I want to see him be more of use that size and physicality to your advantage, because he's capable of doing it. I think it was just more, he didn't want to get called for offensive fouls, and some of those fouls will not be called at the next level, and that's fair. But part of the game is learning how to not get called for them in college either.
In the first place, yeah.
And this isn't to say that Blake had a bad year at all last year, but if we're nitpicking, which you have to do when you're looking at one of possible 60 draft positions, that's what I would look to see from Blake this year. And I think he's capable of doing all of those things. We move forward now. Robert wants to know, speaking of the NBA, which former Panther from last year's team do you think has the best shot to catch on with an NBA team this year? The NBA draft is later this month. And 3 former Panthers have been in the mix for some NBA workouts. We have Nike Savande, I know, did one with the Dallas Mavericks. I know Nelly Cummings had one with the Hornets. I believe he had another one somewhere else. I forget where. I want to say maybe the Grizzlies, if that sounds right. I'm not sure there. And then Jamarius Burton, it was announced this afternoon, Lakers is his latest one. He's also had the Bucks and the Grizzlies. So, Carter, all 3 of those guys, guards, different playing styles. Which one do you think has the best chance? I don't know if any get drafted, but which one do you think has the best chance to play in the NBA next year?
I've said for a while, I think that Jamarius Burton is that guy. His leadership capabilities exude on the floor. Him and Nike Savande have the length. Nothing against Nelly. I think Nelly is a leader, and he's sharp, and I think that he did a lot of great things for Pitt, and he has a great resume. But in the NBA, size is a factor.
Yes.
And both of those guys are guards that are 6'4". They have long arms. They can shoot. Jamarius can create his own shot. He can drive, but he also defends. And Nike also can defend him. And I think that's the thing, that Jamarius Burton does have all the tools. I think the one thing Jamarius Burton doesn't have is the 3-point shot. And he does a lot of the other things very well. And he can be like, when Jeff Capel talks about a glue guy, like he talks about Leaky Black for North Carolina and his role, I think that can be Jamarius Burton in the NBA, as a guy who comes off the bench, gives you really tough minutes, and is able to challenge other guys on the defensive side of the floor. And then when you're working the offense, he knows how to operate. If he gets ISO, he can take a guy to the well. That's where I think that he's an asset too. But I wouldn't sleep on Nike Sabande either, because he can shoot from three, and he has the athleticism to play. I think he's explosive. He has the length. I think both of those guys, with their size, athleticism, and overall skill, they're going to be guys that teams are going to look at, like you said, not draft, but they're going to be guys that get invites, and then, could be like where Justin Champagnie is now. He was on the bench during the Eastern Conference Finals with the Celtics.
Yeah. I think Jamarius is probably the best defender, which goes into his favor. And I think that his size also does. I think Jamarius, I don't think it's a hot take to say he's the best player out of all three, which I would make that claim. And I would say that probably gives him the best chance at the next level. That 3-point shot, like you said, Carter, it's missing from his game. He even acknowledges that. But if you've been watching the NBA playoffs this year, the mid-range is kind of making a comeback, and not just with Jokic either. I mean, you look at guards like Jalen Brunson, who, if you can efficiently shoot from 15 to 18 feet and make it, and you can create those looks, then there's value in that. I mean, there was a guy, what was his name? He were 24 and 8. Kobe Bryant. Yeah, he made a pretty good career doing those shots. So, and I'm not saying JB's the next Kobe or anything, but I'm saying that this narrative that the NBA hates mid-range, they hate mid-range when, if you can shoot at the same efficiency from three, they want you to shoot those shots from three, because if you're going to make both at the same rate, shoot the one that's worth more points. That's simple math. But if Burton can hit mid-range at a 50% clip or somewhere close to that, then there's value there. And he can play defense. He has the size, and he's a really good passer. I think that Jamarius Burton is a guy that there's certainly value in giving him an opportunity to play in the summer league, and maybe even just giving him a short 10-day opportunity sometime mid-season, a G League thing, and see what he can do, because he can kind of blend his game to fit with a lot of different players. He can play with ball-dominant people. He can play with shooters. He can play with strong big men. He can run the floor. He can do a lot of different stuff, and you can kind of play him at two different spots on the floor. So that's where I like JB for the next level value. Nike is, I think, the best athlete of the three. But I don't know. I think Nike would probably need a lot more to go right for him than JB, if we're being completely fair here.
I also feel like it shouldn't be slept on that Jamarius Burton has an it factor. Like there's that values as well. Now, he's not going to be the guy for a team in the NBA, but like when you can, like when he had the ball in his hands against Mississippi State and that play, and we were sitting there courtside, you and I are both thinking like, oh, he's taking this and it's going. And like that's his moment. And if you can do that at the collegiate level on a big stage, you can do the tough moments in the NBA. And I think that's what people are going to look at for Jamarius Burton. And that's where I think that he has that factor to him. He's a killer. He wants to go out and murder you. That is what he wants to do as a player. Not like literally, but like, I mean, on
very
the
nice
court.
Guy, would not hurt a fly.
Right. Yeah. He's actually extremely nice to talk to, but like as a competitor, if you're his opponent, he wants to destroy you. And that, I think that is, and like most guys want to beat you, but I think JB, he hates you. And I think that's a factor that I think goes in his favor.
Yeah. And I'll just say it, the Miami Heat have convinced me that anyone can be a decent NBA player now. I mean, just the way they.
What you mean by that? What you mean by Heat folk?
I'm saying that's Heat culture. I'm complimenting it. It's just, we could see freaking,
Caleb Martin, baby.
LaVon Kendall could be rolling out game 6 here, like just some random former college basketball players, Tyler Enos out of nowhere, just, former Syracuse guard, just random guys. There's no one I would put it past with Heat culture. So if I see that JB gets a Heat workout, I'm buying my tickets to watch him play in the first round next year.
There we go.
All right. So we'll move on now. Final question. Bernard wants to know, another Pitt basketball question. Are there any updates on Pitt basketball's 2024 recruiting class? Brandon Cummings, is he still the only commit so far? Chris and I talked about this before we started recording, he is, and that's because Pitt only has one senior.
Yeah.
They could have this whole team
They're
back.
stacked.
Now, granted, that's
they're not
going to because that's just not how college basketball works. But the way it works right now, Blake Hinson's the only guy, and he actually still might have a year of eligibility. I don't know. I mean, he's definitely not coming back, I don't think, for another year, even if he does have one. Blake's done. But yeah, they've got Brandon Cummings, who, based on what he's done in AAU this summer, he's going to be a 4-star here soon on Rivals. He's already a 4-star, I believe, on ESPN. They're in the mix for some other guys. Austin Swartz, Delquan Warren are a couple of 4-star guards. They seem to be really going after backcourt guys. They've offered some front court players, but if you look, the dudes who will return likely are going to be the forwards, I would think. Like, you're going to have the Diaz Grahams back. You're probably going to have Will back again. You're probably going to have, we'll see between Fetty and Papa Kante, and who knows. But, there's not a huge need for 2024 right now, just because, you might just have one guy leave and then 2 guys leave for the portal, and you'd rather use those 2 spots for portal acquisitions, right?
It's also a delicate thing, like you said, like you're saying you want to save those spots for the portal, but like if you're actively recruiting guys in that class, you are telling the guys that you have now, all the young guys that they have on the roster right now, do not get comfortable. Do not think that this is your home. And that's not the opposite of what you want to do, because you don't know which ones will get comfortable and which ones won't. Like, who knows? Like, Dior Johnson, for all the roller coaster of his first year was, if he comes out and he's a star next year and he wants to come back again, you want to keep him, right? So like there's that factor. You don't know what Jalen Lowe or Carl Carrington or Mel Barnes, you don't know which of those guys are going to hit for you. Gerard Drumgoole was a 4-star guy that came in years ago. Everyone was waiting for him to blow up, and it didn't happen. It's just things like this happen. And as a recruiter in college basketball, and I'm not one, like you said, we don't know that life. We've read, we study it, we talk to the guys who do live that life. But like, that is one of the major challenges, is trying to balance the egos and the understandings of these, let's say it, kids, these guys, these are high schoolers, and knowing like, hey, what message are we sending them if they put 2 and 2 together and realize, wait a minute, like there's coming back. So like when the announcements happen, like they will play a whole other season. They will play well, they will play bad, they will, however they finish, there will be moves made after the fact. There'll be guys who think that, this is their time and they just need to move on. There's going to be guys who think that they didn't get enough playing time. There's going to be all sorts of things. And then you're going to lose 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. Who knows how many players they'll lose that year. But it's not about Pitt. It's about college basketball. It's just the culture that is this sport and this league right now in the NCAA. But that's when you make the moves then. So I wouldn't be alarmed by it. But when you look at the 2025, like the offers that they're making, the visits that they're pulling in, Noah,
25 is big. Yeah, that's the thing.
There's some names up in there.
I think that's it, Chris, is they know that, hey, like that was strategic also with their portal moves this year. And the 2 guys that they brought in, they weren't just, guys like Greg Elliott and Nelly Cummings, who were graduate transfers. These were guys that had multiple years left of eligibility. So they were long-term assets. Ishmael Leggett can come back for another season. So can Zach Austin. That was intentional. Papa Kante and all these other high school guys, they could be around for a little bit. That's why they don't need to really recruit 2024 that hard. But 25, like you alluded to, Chris, that has the potential to be a monster class for Pitt.
Yeah.
Where you look at the players that they're in the mix with. This week, I believe on the 15th at midnight, is when Jeff Capel, and not just him, he's not special. He's a good coach, but sorry, Jeff. You're not the only one who gets to do this. No, but I'm just saying
not me,
every coach in the country can start contacting class of 2025 recruits, I believe, at midnight on the 15th. So, you look at the guys that Pitt's already in the mix for in that 2025 class. So these guys would be upcoming high school juniors. Right. You have Malik Thomas, who's Brandon Cummings' teammate at Lincoln Park. He's a top 10 player in the country, probably the highest rated high school basketball prospect this area has maybe ever seen. Then you look at Alir Malouk, another 5-star local kid who Pitt has had on campus numerous times and for unofficial visits, and his stock continues to rise, and he's currently playing for the same AAU program that Papa Kante played for. So they have a big in there. You look at Koa Pete, a kid in Arizona who's cousins with Jamarius Burton. I think he's a top 10 player in the country. That's a pretty good in to have with someone like that. And you look at where Pitt's trending and the recruits that they've been able to get. I mean, if they're able to get these 4-star guys where they're at now, if they have another successful thing, maybe they can get a 5-star. It's going to take some time, but the benefit of not having a lot to recruit in 2024 is you can focus all of your time on this superstar group in 2025. And now I will say, if Pitt lands Pete, Thomas, and Maluk, that would be incredible. That's not going to happen more likely than not. I don't see that there will be making documentaries about that class if they do.
But here's the thing about
if you get one of them though, that's a huge changing player. Yeah,
exactly. But here's the other thing, Noah, is that this was what Jeff Capel has been trying to build for a long time.
Right.
And he was known as a guy who could recruit at Duke, and he was coming to Pitt to be able to recruit for Pitt. And now that they've had a modicum of success, they've been able to pull out a year where you can say that is a win. There's no question about it. They got 2 tournament wins. They were exciting. Everyone loves Pitt basketball right now. They're on the upswing. If they can follow it up with another solid season, they don't need to be, Elite Eight or anything like that, but get back to the tournament, win a game at least. Don't have this be a disappointing season, and then players are going to be looking at that. And I think Jeff Capel, he has just the personable skills, the social skills of a coach who can reach out to players, know the right things to say, know the ways to approach their families, and be like, hey, you want to be part of something special? And you don't want to have to go to Duke and then compete with 3 other 5-stars, and then next year's another 3 other 5-stars. You can come to Pitt, and we can be one of the best teams in the country, and you be treated that way, like you're one of the best players in the country. And I think that's something that Jeff Capel will be able to sell. And but again, a lot of it depends on this year and how they play. But if they do it right this year, those 5-stars that we're talking about, they could be real deals instead of fairy tales.
If you can pick up girls with acne and braces, once your face clears up and your teeth, are shiny and perfect and straight, it's a lot easier to make that sales pitch, and that's the thing. Pitt's got a good skincare routine right now. Those braces are coming off. They're coming along. They're developing. I know that's a very big Colin Cowherd analogy that I just made right there, but it's got some weight to it, where if Jeff has always been able to recruit when there hasn't been the success to back, at Pitt, when he's been able to be in the mix for these guys, when he has a resume now, when they're playing in the tournament and everything, it's going to be a lot easier to make this sell and say, okay, well, you could be one of 5 stars you could be one of 5 5-stars at Duke, or you could beat them on our roster and you could be the guy. So
Noah's dating progress aside, I think Pitt's in a good place.
I've never had acne. I've always had good skin.
Oh, you've never had acne? Not once.
No, not bad. I mean, I get a zit here and there, but I mean, okay. I did have braces, but this look at this. Shiny, beautiful. Got a great skincare routine. Slide into the DMs if you want to know what I do. I take good care of this face.
Okay.
Any final thoughts, Carter? Skincare aside,
thinking ahead, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. It's upcoming this weekend. Excited for that. It's always, I always think back to, we have a lot of conversations with fathers and, their kids, and they're always looking out for their best interest. And I just think that Father's Day is always an important time to celebrate those men and what they do to help their kids, not just in their careers, but in their lives. And, both of our fathers have been important in our lives. And I think it's something that even if your kid isn't going to play D1 ball somewhere, it's important to be there for them. And sports is one of an awesome way to connect with your kid and, build relationships and build traditions with them.
On the note of Father's Day, I want to say, screw the MLB for not having the Pirates home on Father's Day. That's just, a go-to staple for me. It just makes it easy. Now I got to think of something to do. So
you can take it to Clemente Museum. There you go.
We've already done that. We've done that before. For Father's Day.
I'm out of ideas.
Yeah, but that's it's all. And then I looked, I'm like, well, are the Guardians home? They're in Arizona, so we can't even go up to Cleveland for a game. I'm like, oh, damn it. Now I don't know what I'm going to do. We'll figure something out. But yes, shout out to the dads. Happy Father's Day in advance to everyone out there. And, everyone enjoy their summer. I hope you're enjoying our content here on the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. We have you covered Monday through Friday on all your Pittsburgh sports information, analysis, and coverage here at the PG.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed it on Apple Podcasts, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down in the description.